As rescue workers continue with their efforts, there are still miracles emerging from this disaster. An 80-year-old woman was brought up from under this rubble.
First, we were responding to a civilian who said he suspected that his mother is still there alive. We went there. We used the detector to know if she's still alive. Then, when we were able to see her, two of the Omani team, the one we were working with, went in and they start, removing some parts to rescue the lady. It was difficult to rescue because there are so many people who are unprofessional, and they were shouting at us. And one of the relatives of, I think, the lady we saved, her son was there, and he was giving the direction to everybody. So after like about 45 minutes, 1 hour of working hard, we were able to bring her out, and she was breathing when difficulty breathing when we brought her out, and we gave her some oxygen.
The woman was taken to a nearby hospital for treatment, and while it has been good news for some, it's still an antagonizing weight for some of the families. The bodies of their loved ones continue to be brought from underground.
Upon hearing the news that there is a lady that was saved today, he's feeling so hopeful that his parents will be saved today, and the Omani team is still working on that. He said he was trying for how many days to have his family, somebody come look at the spot, but nobody came, and he's so thankful for the Omani team, and he's feeling very, very sad.
And just as hope was dwindling, as the sun went down at about 7 p.m, rescuers were called by locals to one of the sites where there were collapsed buildings, and after rescue workers had investigated, they brought up another person alive. Chriselda Lewis, SABC News in Hatay City, Turkey.
All right, that reports by Chriselda Lewis a little bit earlier on. But let's join her now live from Turkey to get a sense of what's been happening this evening. Chriselda, great to have you. 35,000 people, we believe, are dead. So that's the tragedy of this. But today there's been stories of hope, haven't there?
Well, absolutely, Peter. Stories of hope and absolute miracles. That's how all of this is being described by locals as well as rescue workers. You can only but imagine, just taking a look at the clip that you just played, the relief on some of the faces of the family members who've been waiting at some of these sites that have been devastated by this earthquake, been waiting for days, refusing to sleep. At night, there were light braziers, hoping that the rescue workers will continue to work throughout the night. We've returned to the base this evening. You'll see here behind me rescue workers after returning from a long day, quite successful as well, together with the Gift of the Givers rescue team, managing to bring to the surface two of the people who were trapped more than a week ago now, Peter, under those collapsed buildings, bringing them back to the surface. An absolute miracle. One, an 80-year-old woman who was rescued very early this morning. She was taken to hospital for treatment, and late into the evening, just about as we were about to pack up, Peter, and leave those sites as they were beginning to get dark, we heard voices from some of the locals there screaming for the rescue workers, and everyone charged towards that direction. They were clearly hearing sounds coming from one of the areas that had caved in there. And about 20 minutes later, an elderly man, miraculously alive. He didn't look like he had much bruises on his body. He was given some oxygen and then quickly taken away to hospital, as you saw in that clip that you just played. So while the hours go by, I've been saying, as the clock ticks, I've been saying, ever since we've been here in Turkey, you know, there are those stories of hope that continue, you know, to creep in here and there. You would recall as well, there was also a baby who was also yesterday rescued, also here in Hatay City, here in Turkey. And these are some of the stories of hope, which is really giving, you know, these desperate families who continue to wait on the sidelines of all this devastation, hoping for some good news. They still cling on to the hope that their loved ones will be found alive. But unfortunately, it's not such good news for some family members, Peter, in the sense that when we arrived at that very scene where the elderly man as well as the 80-year-old woman were pulled out alive today, there were also some casualties, you know, bodies of unfortunate victims of this devastation that were also brought up. But while you have, you know, those stories of the bodies and the body count continuing to rise, it's expected to continue rising, Peter, because there are still so many people that are unaccounted for at this stage. So the expectation is that that number is certainly going to rise, but there are those pockets of hope and miracles that we have seen since we've been here. And I think, you know, many have been saying, while the clock ticks, many believe, and some rescuers do believe, that, you know, the rescue or recovery mission should not be called off just as yet, because so many days later, you can only but imagine, Peter, with this earthquake having struck, you know, more than a week ago, the two people who were pulled out alive today tell you that there's still a possibility that there might be more people who are still alive underground. Another concern also is that, Peter, you have excavators that, you know, are demolishing some of the buildings in these areas that have not really totally collapsed. Buildings that are still standing but are being, you know, being destroyed on the basis that, you know, rescue workers and perhaps emergency services and the authorities fear that residents might go back inside those buildings to try and salvage, you know, what may not have been completely damaged when their homes had collapsed. So the excavators are busy, you know, collapsing some of those buildings, but there's also a fear that while that takes place, there might still be some people who may be alive underground, as demonstrated or as we saw today with these two miracles, certainly that took place right before our eyes.
All right, Chriselda, I guess the real heroes at this time are these rescue workers who are working tirelessly, long hours, to try and rescue and recover at the same time. Tell us just how taxing and how hard this work is, because we don't often talk about them.
You know, Peter, I was just giving them a chance to do their work, and I must say, the manner in which they gave the media space to do their job, understanding that the work that we also have to do is equally important for us to be able to tell this global catastrophe to our audiences. I mean, there are thousands of media who descended on Turkey to be able to come and tell the story of the grief of these people, and also, you know, tell the story of this devastation. So they truly are the real heroes, and in fact, heroines. There are also women who are part of these rescue teams. And Peter, I did take it upon myself to make sure that I do have a sit down with them, Peter, just before we wrap up things here in Turkey, and really find out from them exactly how taxing this is on them. You know, the devastation and what we've seen with the naked eye, Peter, is unlike anything I have ever seen. But you can only imagine with them having to go into the red zones and having to pull out, people who have been trapped for hundreds and hundreds of hours, and also having to pull out the bodies of some of the victims of this massive tragedy. It certainly is taxing on them, the long hours that they've had to work, having to report back to base, making sure that they also carry out their work with precision. And there have been hundreds of these rescue workers that have been here. It was also very interesting to see South African teams working together with the Omani team, working together with the Turkish team as well. So it has really been a coming together of rescue workers from around the globe to assist this country to bring some hope and even some closure to those families who may have lost their loved ones. So, Peter, don't despair. I will be having a very lengthy conversation with them, and I'm hoping it's going to be on your program tomorrow evening. They've already agreed to speak to me, and that will be towards the end of our mission here. And I think it will be highly appropriate at that time to get a sense from them exactly what this meant for them and what really goes in to ensuring that a mission such as this is carried out with precision and done very carefully.
Chriselda, we'll leave it there, but we want to thank you. Great work that you're doing out there. Thanks so much indeed for all that you're doing. Thanks, Chriselda. All right, that's senior reporter Chriselda Lewis reporting there from Turkey, and she's been following perhaps one of the most difficult stories to tell at this time. More than 35,000 people now are known to have died, but that number could be twice that when the final counting is done.